Mike and Tim visit Earth.
Sit in their chair. I think that one has to be all the way in the back, so it's a leaner.
It is a leaner. Are we? Has the show started?
Yeah, this is the organic start of MATVE.
It is a leaner, and this chair is so much more comfortable than the chair you're sitting in, which is why I put up with the broken wheel for so long.
Yeah.
But finally, you get fed up with it, and
I bet they sell those, the bottom parts of office chairs.
they do. And I have the parts. The problem is it's broken in a very particular way that seems to be unsalvageable.
Yeah.
And it was given to me, so it was just a gift, and I took it in, and here it is.
Yeah,
I'm trying to nurture it back to health, but I can't.
Yeah, celebrate it, faults and all.
Faults and all. That's right. Warts and all.
Warts and all.
Mm-hmm.
We know about that.
So I haven't seen you in a couple weeks.
I know it's been, dude. I haven't seen anybody, but don't think for a second I haven't noticed that we haven't seen each other for a few weeks because it was hot, and then I've been on the road and I haven't seen you.
We had a good run, so it's all good. That holds the container in between the times that we see each other. But I have been curious because I haven't talked to you besides the half an hour of you coming in here, right?
Yeah.
What have you been doing? Just all comedy?
Mostly just comedy. I've been more or less. I rolled out of a speeding car into Chris DiStefano's podcast.
Yes.
So I've had to hit the ground fully running, try to integrate myself into that as seamlessly and as best as possible.
Yeah.
It's been really fun, slightly difficult because I've explained to you there's guests, so we're trying to get the feel of what we are together as well as the guest.
Yeah.
But it's coming together. It's really good, and we have a cool run coming up where we're doing 10 eps or whatever in a row of just us, and I feel like that'll get the real tone of what the two of us together actually mean.
Work your shit out.
Yeah, and I've been on the road with him the last 2 weekends, which I haven't middled in middle feature so
you got the opener. Yeah.
I haven't done that in probably 7-8 years, I think, since I started headlining. And I started headlining because I stopped middling for Chris. So it was weird. We split. I'm headlining. He's headlining huge places. He's doing great. And I'm doing okay. And then he's doing so well that a headliner becomes his opener in these giant theaters. It's so fucking fun.
Yeah.
It's so fun, dude. The amount of people that are just in this vast... All right.
I didn't know you put the light up there.
You know what?
That's a risky spot.
That was totally deserved. Completely deserved.
You're going to get it again.
Yeah.
It's going to be the same place. Yeah.
He went right after it.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine. But yeah, performing, getting to do giant theaters and that type of energy in one room. It's everything, not to get too queefy immediately, but just everything is so social media and serotonin dumps and all that shit. And it feels stupid for a comedian to say this, but that exchange, that in the room exchange is there's nothing like it. You can't duplicate it in any kind of digital way. You have to have in-person human shit.
Yes.
And it's just his fans are the best. The fact that they now know who I am is really cool. I get that pop coming out that I've never gotten before. And that's just that's dope.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys, it's sort of been inevitable, right? Because you've been friends for so long, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now, is it are you nervous at all about the relationship, or does the show seem?
Yeah. I have a lot of mental problems, and I'm going through it. We'll get into a lot of the other stuff, but I'm going through it in terms of just a lot of odd insecurity. That's what jumping levels, I guess, does, or Chris's podcast is really successful. I've guested on it a million times before becoming the co-host, so I should be completely comfortable and normal, and I am outwardly and mostly inside, but there are moments of that extreme imposter shit, the what am I doing, what does anyone like me? That kind of feeling.
Well, I think anybody who's successful has to encounter that at one point or another. It's it's like a form of resistance,
right?
Whenever you want to make a positive change in your life or move in a certain direction that is exciting like this, or helps you level up, reach a greater audience, you're going to meet all of the stuff that resistance is made of. So it's you're bringing your relationship to resistance with you, and all of those voices that you've maybe never dealt with are always going to be there every time you make that movement.
And again, it's the comp to sports, because I've never really, I understood it, but I never really fully 360 understood it until now when coaches would be like, your biggest enemy is you. And they'd say that to me in particular. Obviously, that's a coach trope, and they say that to a lot of people. But coaches would pick me to the side and be like, your biggest fucking enemy is you, dude. You get in your way all the time. You're constantly in your head. You're doubting yourself. You're thinking, and of course, none of them encouraged me to to feel better about myself, but they were quick to point out what was wrong.
Yeah.
But it's true. It's similar in comedy to where, like, last week I had a real come-to moment where I was like, stop being a bitch. You're listening to all these basketball podcasts about these people getting their opportunity and they either step to the plate or they don't. This is your opportunity. Stop fucking being in your head and ruining a great time, because that's what it is. It's a great time I'm having with one of my best friends, and my head is such a bogged down fuck face that hates itself that it just it could submarine that joy pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's why I the work that I do, it's helpful all the time, because it's just about recognizing this stuff, right? Like exploring your consciousness. Like I was at Disney World with the family. Gina DJs, right?
Yeah.
And it becomes like a whole family affair.
Awesome.
We need the money, right? So
Fuck
please, DJ, go fucking get out there.
Let's go play Goofy's birthday.
Let's whatever it takes. Minnie,
Goofy and Minnie just doing bumps of blow in the corner. Oh, yuck. That was great.
That was good.
Yeah.
That was good. Oh boy.
Oh boy. Uh-huh.
Another line. Oh no.
My heart's gonna burst. Uh-huh.
So we were down there, we're in Orlando. And we tacked on a couple days.
Stop hogging it. Uh-huh. Sorry, I was still stuck in that.
It's all good.
Go ahead.
No, we're there, and we tacked on a couple days at the end of the trip to go to Disney, right? Because we got Evelina, who's 9, and Alma, who just turned 1, and at one point during the day,
do they make you pay for a 1-year-old?
No.
Oh, good.
Not only that, but Disney does it so well, right? If you can get on board with the Disney stuff, I always wonder. It's like, all right, do I want to spend all this money and go to Disney, or do I want to go to a sacred site like Machu Picchu and really enrich my soul and understand how? I'm like, let me go to fucking Animal Kingdom. The animals are there. It's like being, So
100%.
We go there, and at one point during the day, I realized that I've had this unconscious demand on myself that you better have a good time. Like I spent all this money, and I realized that demand was preventing me from accepting the life that I was living.
Yep.
And I was imagining some other place that I needed to get to in order to be happy.
Yeah.
And it was causing me to just I saw it, and I was like, that's why I'm a little nippy today,
What is that? Because I have the exact same thing, and it's certain that's like where my OCD crystallizes around that entire thing. But what is that?
It's a split, meaning in dualistic thinking, and we need dualistic thinking to be able to move through the world, because the world is made of duality, right? We are separate. But what happens is we start to be able to, we do this thing, all human beings do it, is where we have trouble accepting the life that we're living for whatever reason. Could just be anxiety, could be the way you were brought up, whatever. There's all these different reasons. But we have trouble accepting the life that we're living, and we imagine some other life that doesn't have the same problems or has them all solved that you can get to. So you spend your whole life questing or searching or problem solving. So you become like a seeker of happiness, a seeker of joy, and all these things, but you never actually get to have it.
That is me.
Yeah, no, it's the number one illness in the West.
Yeah.
It even comes down to the split. It also, we could talk about the self-improvement model, because people believe that I'm basically worthless, or I'm nothing, or I'm not good enough unless I'm doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So there's this split in the body where no matter who I am or how I am, I need to be perfect to a certain extent, or spectacular or whatever. And what that does is it denies our humanity. It denies the parts of ourselves that are weak, or lazy, or shameful, or whatever, right? Yeah. But the fact is, you want to be a human being. So the question is all right, what does it look like when you're a human being and you want to accomplish something? What does it look like then? And it might look like not running your body to the ground, or getting some sleep, or taking care of yourself in some way. But that's what we do. There's always we imagine some other life that we can live, and we go try to get there.
I wish there was and I don't know if what I'm saying even makes sense, but I wish there was more of a connection between my subconscious and my intellect, where I wish, because I can really intellectualize all those things, and I can really I understand that that way of thinking is actually only a way towards depression for me, is to kind of ignore everything I should be grateful for in life, only to fantasize about this different reality that exists where we finally have enough money. I'm selling enough tickets. I'm doing this. I got everything I want. But I also know that at that point, I'm going to have the same exact feelings, the same exact anxieties, because I'm at a point now where 10 years ago, if you told me I was here, I would live here forever.
Yeah. So you're seeing a pattern.
Of course.
Right? And you start to wake up to it, but you don't quite know what to do with it.
Yeah, I can't stop it.
Yeah.
Like that's the part of my obsessive compulsive thoughts that I'm like tapping into that's becoming so fucking exhausting that it almost just feels that my lot in life is to suffer in my own brain. Not like I'm not saying suffer as if this is grand suffering in the grand scheme of the world. I'm certainly not saying that while everything is going on. I'm saying that while for some reason, this lottery ticket that I've won in terms of life, wife, son, career, everything, it's still, there's something in me that is like, I can't have full gratitude. I have moments of it, glimpses of it, but I can't have full sustained gratitude.
Yeah. Well, because there's probably some aspect of your consciousness that's saying, if you accept this, then you're going to become a 700-pound sloth and you're never going to push yourself to be successful again. Yeah. I was just having a healing session with someone around this, and it's a split that we all have where basically this critical judgmental part of ourself is running the show, right? And it's saying, you suck, you need to do this, you need to do that. You know, oh, you're watching Netflix, you can't have fun watching Netflix. You need to go, work on yourself. Yeah. And since you're still like, because you are human and you need to rest, you end up sitting there and you don't actually get the rest. You end up just torturing yourself over and over again. So you could go through this for 10, 20, 30 years, the rest of your life until you wake up to it. And
I was just gonna say that opened me up to being like, I think like doom scrolling on your phone is like a Guantanamo level of torture. Like in terms of like, if you do it for long enough over a course of a week, you feel like you're fully sleep deprived and like you're hallucinating, and also have just endured emotional torture about why your life isn't that. Like that's similar also is like, I've had to completely, and I do good on this every once in a while, but then of course I just quote unquote relapse. But it's like my phone, the social media shit, I'm trying to get better at post and drop. That's it. Get rid of it, move on with my day and live outside of my head as opposed to living 100% in here. And I notice anytime I'm having a really tough time with myself, it's because I'm fucking on the phone constantly.
On the phone.
Yeah.
I was thinking you're going to say, there's usually what happens is something happens in our lives and we revert to like our habitual way of dealing with it. And the habitual way of dealing with it is usually a strategy we came up with like when we were like 5, and it's just unexamined. Yeah. Right. So there's these parts of us that are sort of we're just out of relationship to it. We haven't woken up yet, or we didn't have it modeled to us correctly. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So we're kind of like babies trying to figure it out. But going back to that judgmental piece, right? You got to understand that critical part that's driving you and pushing you. It's done a lot of good for you. Yeah. It's gotten you to where you are, right? But now as an adult, you got to take a look. You look at the stress and the anxiety and you say, all right, am I ever actually going to be happy? Right. And that's the moment we can start to wonder, all right, how can I relate to this differently? What does this what is the driving motivator in my life look like, the critical judgmental part, when it's in relationship to kindness?
Yeah.
And that's sort of like the wrestling that we all need to do, especially in the West, because we all feel not good enough and exhausted and bored and addicted. Yeah. And that's because we're not letting ourselves live the lives that we're living, and we don't get any nourishment. So got all these trophies on the wall, but you're not fucking happy about it. You just need another trophy.
No, that's totally true. And I feel, the best I ever feel. And again, like I hope this isn't coming off as me just like bitching and moaning about the everyday minutia of my life. I love my life. I'm very grateful in spurts, and then I fuck up and it just like goes away. And I know that it sucks that I'm not grateful for my life sometimes. And I'm then even harder on myself because of that. You know what I mean? So it's this weird just like cycle of turning over this thing. And I'm my best when I'm living in service of my family, like where everything is in service, including going on the road, including writing jokes. Like the other day I sat down with crew and we wrote jokes together. Oh. Like, so I wrote jokes and he was like kind of drawing and saying, he was like, what did he say? He goes, "Dad, why does a cheetah have heels?"
Why?
I go, why? He goes, "To run." Like, solid bit, dude.
Putting it together.
Like, you might have to go from like A to C or something, like skip over the running and go to something fast, or different. But I was like, good structure. Yeah, efficiently used words. And that was like really fun. So I'm trying my best to like almost include them in the process, in everything, and that's been helpful, because it's the worst feeling in the world when I'm looking my son in the face and we're doing art together and we're having a great time, and then in the back of my head I'm like, you should check your phone. You should see who called you gay on YouTube. Like that's what it's for. It's for cutting. It's not even good. Like, I'm not looking at my son and being like, I bet there's another son that loves me more on YouTube. It's, I bet there's people that are actually right about me and you're wrong. You were born as my son and you don't know any better.
Oh, so it's almost like a confirmation bias?
Yeah, I think that actually is exactly what it is.
So it's interesting. So the judge really is running the show, right?
Yeah.
And what we do is, so first of all, you're a smart guy. So the problem is you judge the judge, or maybe you feel shame. And you feel shame about having the shame, and then you judge the shame, and then you judge yourself for not having to figure out the shame. And then 2-3 days have gone by, and you're like snapping at your wife. And she's like, "What's wrong? Why are you so angry?"
Toes. I have to go this way.
I felt like the electricity.
Me too. It was like Demolition Man.
Good callback. One of my favorite movies of all time.
Oh, quick aside. I just watched Copland.
Okay.
Have you seen that? It feels right up your alley.
Yeah, a long time ago. Remind me.
So it's Harvey
detectives,
Keitel,
right?
Detectives that find out a way for them to live outside of New York City.
Yeah.
Because they're NYPD cops. They become auxiliary cops. They move to this town in Jersey where the mob has more or less like sectioned off a place for them to live as long as they run drugs for them. And it's based off of Pearl River.
Is it really?
Yes, dude, because it's about Colin Quinn told me it last night, because Harvey Keitel and him have the same like voice almost. And I was like, oh, Nicole pointed that out, that you guys have the same voice. And he's like, well, it's about your fucking town. I was like, what town? He's like, Pearl River. I was like, what? It was because it's Garrison, New Jersey, which is a made up town. And he's like, what NYPD cop would be allowed to live in New Jersey? He's like, that's across state lines, not just outside of the city. He's like, they just made it up. He's like, the rumor is that it's about Pearl River, just Irish fucking cops.
Yeah, the place where drunk driving is legal.
I fucking love it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Pearl River's a special place.
Yeah. I mean, outside of Ireland is the most saturated Irish community in the world.
I've heard that rumor.
Yeah.
It's probably true because you said it.
Yeah.
Probably true.
Man. So what were we saying? You were saying a movie. Jumped to Copland.
Movie. Well, we were talking about judgment, I think.
Yes,
right? Judging the judge, having shame about the shame. What you need to do, there is a way to stop that.
Okay.
There's a way to stop that. First, you need to wake up. You need to realize you're doing it. Like, oh, I'm doing this again, right? Yeah. And then you can do like your psychological work, go see a therapist and understand, where the judgment came from and all that.
I know where it comes from. Yeah.
Well, you'll discover, regardless of where it comes from, you'll discover at one point that the reason why you're judging yourself is because it's already happened. Right? Like somebody already did that to you.
Yeah.
So now you're doing it to yourself as a form of self-protection and managing yourself and all that. So when you're judging the judge, what you need to do is, okay, what do you need to do? It's like, you need to wake up to the stories that you're telling yourself, right? Get to know all of them, right? Because they're not going to stop, right? I'm worthless. I need to check my phone. There's people out there that think this way about me. Right? There's nothing you can do about it. It's always going to go on. The goal is, can you actually see through it? Can these stories become transparent? Because remember, you're awake to them, so now you don't believe them hook, line, and sinker. Now, the nature of story is such that it's got parts of truth in it, but it's also got parts of untruth, which is what you're filling in the gaps with. So as long as you're awake to the story, awake to the judgment, then just drop it.
Right.
And just be with what you're feeling in that moment. Yeah. And something starts to change. Yeah. It's a shift in consciousness.
No, you're right. And that is usually how I get back online, I guess is the best way to put it. I sometimes audibly say, shut up to myself, like to my brain. Just shut up. Yeah. Stop doing this, which again is negative self-speak. And I probably could say it nicer, but it's all this like childhood parenting thing. It's my mom and my dad's voice in my own head saying all this shit. But it's like, this is what I mean by intellect and subconscious coming together, is like, I have that. I really do understand that. And I have done the work in terms of coming to terms with that, in terms of looking into that, in terms of understanding that I can stop, that I'm judging the judge, and it's a feedback loop, and I've constantly just gone into this, I call it a spider web. It's just a negative web of the first negative thought goes to the second, to the third, to the fourth, to the 4 millionth.
Because it's confirmation bias. Yeah. When you're caught in the judgment, you look for one thought that confirms it, and then you keep searching for the same thought over and over again.
Yeah. No, you're right, because it's funny, even when feedback has been overwhelmingly positive, that that doesn't have much of an impact on me. Like,
you can't take it in.
Yeah, I mean, I try to, and I've gotten emotional and happy and grateful and stuff, like all the human feelings that people get from compliments and somebody truly seeing you or appreciating you, but it does not linger for 1 second. It like is like, okay, thanks, you're an idiot. Let's see what the real people who agree with me think. You know?
Yeah. Well, in other words, the judge takes over again.
Exactly.
That part of you. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And we all deal with it.
Yeah, and I don't think I've ever like laid it out as clear as this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'm like crazy tired going into this, by the way. I haven't slept in a week. And when I'm tired, I usually revert, but instead of being spontaneous and in the moment, because it's hard for me to like feel my body and have like a rhythm, Yeah. And also I think because I'm afraid that I'm just going to go blank or maybe fall asleep if I actually feel my body. You know what I mean? So like,
dude, if you literally just go, oh,
that's what
fell over to sleep.
You might notice that I'm taking a little bit extra to respond.
Yeah.
Like I need to like
I'm taking
process
it as thoughts.
Yeah, it is. It is. I'm being thoughtful. I'm trying to make sure that I'm not like reverting back to what I'm saying I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I end up just teaching.
Yeah.
I end up teaching or sharing. Like I just come from memory. I'm like, let me just fill the gaps here. Let me just tell people interesting things that seem like they're in relationship to what Mike is saying. So I just need to call myself out because I have such a desire to want to teach. And yet I have cool things to say that I suspect you will be interested in.
I suspect.
Yes.
I like that.
Because I think about this from time to time. If there's anything that I get out of doing this show with you is I think of ways that I can communicate what I do for a living, what I'm interested in ways that you will actually find interesting as well.
Yeah.
It's like a goal of mine. I think about it.
Well, you're achieving your goal because I do find this interesting.
Yeah.
That's why
you want to know yourself.
Yeah, that's why I do the show.
Yeah, I really think my hope is as you and Chris and everybody else become like super uber famous, I want to be the spiritual guy that comes on the show.
Dude, I would love that.
Oh, God, I have fantasies about that.
I mean, we have talked about having you on the show to do a lot of stuff.
And it's a good time because in years past, again, I didn't know what the fuck I was talking about, but I have a foundation at this point now.
You're a comic, basically. Like, you're a spiritual comedian in the sense that, like, you go through it, you get really excited about it, you call yourself a comedian, you do all the things, but you're more or less kind of like, you're new, so you're doing old tropes and you're making mistakes and all that thing, and you don't fully understand it, but then at 5 years, you're like, holy shit, I'm way better than I was at 3 years. You're like, oh, thank God I don't suck like that anymore. And then at 7 years, you're like, holy shit, I can't believe I thought I was good or knew what I was talking about at 5 years.
Yeah.
And then at 15 or 10, whatever, and you're like, I have never known what I was talking about, and I have this craft in place, and that's really great, and everything else is more or less a trust fall, and you gotta just allow the skills that you've developed to guide you through the thicket of woods.
Yeah. And hopefully some, like with each one of those patterns, like you're saying, it's the same thing. It's a fractal. Yeah. Right? It's a fractal. So it's the same pattern playing itself out in different levels. So it's like, can you do the work to wake up to your shit, to just to the ways that you judge yourself and cut yourself off from your life force, from like the nourishment of the moment? Can you actually take some of that in to enjoy your life? Yeah. Or is it always going to be that other path?
I know. I'm curious about that because we were talking about it before, but I'm having I don't know, one-sided issues, I guess, with my mom. She doesn't even know she's really participating because she's not. So I'm like, I'm just left to have conflict by myself. She's just more or less. Sorry, what were you just talking? I lost myself in rage. What were you just?
I was too busy thinking about how I look on camera, super tired. I was like,
no, you just pop up your eyes.
like the smile feels forced. So no, I was saying, wake up to that pattern so that you can actually enjoy your life, and then.
Oh yeah. So the point being is that my mom, she's a pretty evolved person, very smart, really like emotionally connected, or has been throughout her life, but she's always been a victim of her upbringing, of like, the way her mom was abusive, traumatic, the way she spoke to her, all those things, and that in turn educated her way of talking to us. But like, there seems like there's these times where she's going to wake up and be completely cool and therapy and like presence, not gifts, but being present. And then she'll just like revert back to this fucking Irish traumatized. I suppose it's my lot in life to be fucking hurt forever. You know, like that type of shit of just like sitting at a stone bar and this is life. It's hard and dark and I'm gonna fucking drink it away. Like, and my mom doesn't drink, but it's just like that's the mentality. It feels like where she's like she just sinks into it, and I'm like, fuck, man. Am I destined for that? You know what I mean? You watch it and you watch somebody get taken under by it and you're like, am I destined to have these shitty fucking thoughts my entire life? And that might be the case. That it may well be that I have just obsessive, compulsive, negative, self-harming thoughts my entire life. But the one thing I can do is just kind of like endure it, talk through it, communicate it with the people that I care about, my family, you, anybody who is around. Anybody who will listen, and also just like try to provide the best clear path to not that for my son that it can be, because I've talked about it on stage, but my entire parenting style is a fucking social experiment. Like everything, it's my crew is me. He's exactly like me in a lot of ways. Very, very big emotionally, very big like movements, gets embarrassed, and when somebody like checks him or whatever, gets like really down on himself, is very confident, but also that like he's just really, really me. So I'm kind of watching what I would have been like with love and support. Where I'm like, all right, let's like take away all of the I mean I'm trying, but like, you know, some of that shit of being hypercritical, it can come out in moments, and then I have to walk out and like pull myself away and then apologize and talk through it. But I'm trying my very best to not put that fucking voice of you'll never be able to do it in his head, because life is hard for literally everybody on planet Earth, and the thing that really makes it fucking hard is, I mean, circumstance for sure, but internally is your just own self-speak and the way that you talk.
Absolutely.
Like you could be a starving person in a fucking awful area in a war-torn place and have a positive mental place and likely be happier than like a suburban person that lives in an $800,000 house.
I was thinking Ram Dass, when he was first going to India, he was saying that the West, everything works, but we're broken. And in India, nothing works, but their hearts are full. You know? And you hear about the poor people that like somehow filled with joy. It's like, wow, there's some fucked up thing that we're doing here. It's like, in a sense, it's us. And in another sense, it's not our fault. Like your mom, it's not her fault to a certain extent. But once she's awake to it, and it's kind of her responsibility, right?
That's what I've landed on with my parents in general, is that I have so much empathy for both of their upbringings and their childhood and what got them to their place. And then once that is over, everything is your choice. So it's all personal choice. So you have to take responsibility for what you've chosen.
And the challenges, right? This is, have you ever heard of, I probably talked about this guy in Rabbit Hole. How are we doing on time?
Good.
And I came back. I reread his books every now and then. A guy named Bruce Lipton. And the three books that I read are The Biology of Belief, Spontaneous Evolution, and then The Honeymoon Effect. I read it in that order because he lays out essentially how biologically our perception of the environment, literally our perception, which also means our misperception, changes our biology. And it actually triggers certain proteins that talk to the genes that actually manufacture what you need to be in relationship to the environment. So it's like this really, it's a huge revolution in science, right? And what he talks about is how, so that on the side, maybe one day I'll dive into that further because I do have some notes that I would need to dig into. But ultimately what he also says is how our subconscious mind runs the show about 95 to 99% of the time, right? Think about that. So that means that our conscious mind, 1 to 5% is in control, right? And the subconscious mind, the patterning that it downloads starts in the womb and goes until about age 6, maybe a little bit beyond, right? And during that time, like say your mom didn't want you, say, you know,
right.
You're going to feel that.
You're
going to take that into your consciousness in a certain way. Or say maybe you're 4 or 5 years old, you kept your mom up all night. And I don't know why I'm picking on your mom. Maybe you kept your dad up all night. Then you're at the store and you go, I want this toy. And he goes, you don't deserve that. You know, you kept me up all night. Well, you heard, you don't deserve that. And then so now you are on your 10th job, consciously working your butt off. You've written down all your commitments on a piece of paper. You've done everything right. You've gathered the right people around you. You're perfectly set up for success. And somehow You keep fucking it up. Something happens.
Yep.
Right? And everybody's like, what's your fucking problem? You know? And it's because you're not you're resonating at, I don't deserve this.
Yeah.
Right? So it happens on such a it's not subtle. It's not so subtle. But you're also downloading all of the subtleties of the environment, the nuance, the way your parents relate to each other, the way they relate to other people, the way they're talking. Or you download all of that, then you play it out. And this is why Bruce says in the book, when you are when you're older, your best friends will say to you, God, you're just like your mom or your dad. And then you say, no, I'm not. Because you're talking about the 1 to 5%.
Right.
But they're noticing the other 95 to 99.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's interesting.
So there's two ways that I know of how you can deal with that.
Yeah.
The first is you do the spiritual work. You do your psychological work. You do go to therapy, find a good therapist. Then you can start to do your spiritual work because you have an idea of what's going on, where it came from, and so now you can start to see through it. Right? You can say, "Oh, I judge all the time, but maybe I'm not going to get hooked by it this time. Maybe I'm not going to judge the judgment. Maybe I'll just stop it right there." Right? Oh, I'm losing my train of thought. No, it was my biggest fear because actually, like 3 days ago, this anxiety started because I knew we were going to record, and we only have it's like once a month, you know. So it's like I want to do a good job, and I was having trouble sleeping, and it was starting to become like its own thing.
Yes.
I was getting anxiety about the anxiety kind of thing. And so that's my biggest concern. That's why I keep writing down, by the way, because I'm afraid my short-term memory is going to fail.
I've been doing more of that as well, and it turns out it helps to prepare.
They're really nice.
It really does. I've just been banking on my memory being a lockbox for as long as I can remember, and it never has been one.
But But also the way you've put the effort in to do that, you've made it pretty good because you can also smoke pot. Like it's amazing the way you can muscle through this shit.
Well,
and get
that
it
has
done.
been that's also, I think that's a part of what's been going on with my thoughts and all that shit is that I've been taking a ton of edibles, like a ton, to the point where my for me, again, there are people that take 1,000,000 milligrams and feel nothing, and you guys are gods, and I bow to you. But I've been taking like 400 milligrams, like a couple nights in a row.
Yeah.
And I was waking up and I was feeling like really tired, but I'd pound coffee and I'd go to the gym and I'd go through my day, but I was feeling fucking tired, and I would just blame that on negative thoughts instead of recognizing
your body's metabolizing.
I was shooting a sedative dart into my neck every day. And then I think today or 2 days I've been off edibles, meaning I've taken 100 milligrams each night because
you're off it.
Because I'm off it, but because I've heard that if you go, and granted, this could all be internet shit, it could be bullshit, but I've heard that people that have taken like hundreds of milligrams for a long time or an extended amount of time, if they just stop, they can sometimes seize. So like I'm more or less chipping. I'm chipping off the edibles. Meanwhile, it's just a total excuse. Like I don't have to.
It could be, right? It's complicated.
Yeah, it is complicated.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to really test it out on Thanksgiving week.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
Isn't it funny though? As like these moments, like for me, for some reason, I always quit drinking like 2 days before New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Like suddenly I just get that motivation, and it's like, oh, you know,
December 10th is the day I quit drinking.
There you go.
And it was like, it is. I also have to bear in mind that this time of year, as much as I don't like to admit it, and it feels like kind of fucking Hallmark movie, but it's hard. It brings up a lot of negative memories that we've talked about.
Yeah.
I've now grown to think it's funny, but like also then I think of like Crew in my spot, and then I'm like instantly horrified. But my father bum tossing a fully dressed Christmas tree out of that.
I think about that, man.
Like,
I think about that story. Sorry, go on.
It's unbelievable.
I think about that because like there are moments when I have such anger with the family, you know, sharing something, you know, and I'm like, I could easily throw the Christmas tree out the front door. Like it hasn't. I always think like, man, they really traumatized us and they didn't get their shit together, you know. And then I think like, I'm like so close to doing the same exact thing.
Totally,
it's very close.
Well, you've the feeling like, so that's where I am, where you're close, but you're also not that close because you're having that moment of, oh, that's that feeling.
There is.
Oh, that's what they did. Like, I believe this to be true, and this might not be an overall thing, but it's certainly true in my family. With my generation is the first like conscious generation. Like we're the first generation that have looked at our parents, what they did, and have kind of like dissected it and seen how it has affected us. Whether or not that's yielded positive results is almost irrelevant, right? But we are keyed into it, whereas my parents took the abuse, saw it, was like, that fucking sucked, and then didn't have a single mind to stop it. Like, didn't on any level be like, I'm gonna change, like, I'm gonna do it different. They actually thought, they were like, that sucked. That's life. That's how I got to parent my kids.
Yeah.
Like, that's actually just the blueprint. You can't change things. That's what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is the first generation, or at least I feel this way. I think, Nicole is like, I've made the joke before and it's not true, but I think she's the first person to wake up in her entire family. Like the first Italian to be like, what? Like, what is happening?
Put the pasta down.
But it's not true. But she's on the same page where we're both approaching this with like a full consciousness of what we've each endured, how our parents, we're not perfect certainly, and things slide off the table, and we've never screamed in front of crew. It hasn't happened, which knock on wood, that's like I've been able to really like control any of that. The only way we talk is serious talk, and I actually want him to see that, because he's like, Dad, you're yelling at Mom, like when I talk to her like this. And I'm like, buddy, this is a serious conversation, and adults work through their problems by talking through it. That's part of our family, is we never hold our feelings inside. We talk about our feelings, we communicate it, and that's how we're going to come to a healthy resolution, and that's how we're going to stay together and love each other and really rely on each other. And so I'm trying my best to fights aren't a bad thing. They're inevitable. People have disagreements. You have to learn how to communicate through them. All I learned how to communicate at 4 years old. I might have been 3 or 4, but I remember I was on my father's recliner. I think I just took a sip from his Coke that he put a cigarette out in. Like literally, you ever do that with your father's drink when you were a kid?
I do it with dip cups.
Dude, I used to do it all the time, and it would just I was like 3, 4 years old.
Yeah.
So I hear my parents, they're smashing shit, they're screaming at each other, whatever. And then I'm, kind of crawling on this couch, and this is like maybe one of my earliest memories. My father just starts storming out of the room, putting on his jacket. He looks at his little innocent boy on a couch, and he goes, "Never get fucking married." And then he left.
Oh my God.
Just left, slammed the door. I'm like, all right, Dad.
Downloaded.
Yeah, cool. I'm gonna make sure.
Got that locked in there, nice and tight. That's not going anywhere. You feel the turbulence for the next 28 years. Before I forget that train of thought, is there anything else you want to say about that? No. So going back to Bruce Lipton, right? So the only way that I know how to deal with the fact that the subconscious is working 99% of the time or so is like 2 ways. So you do the psychological work, right? And then, so 3 ways, I guess. You have to do the psychological work so that you know your stuff, and so you can see through it. And then you do the spiritual work, which basically says, all right, if you want to come into the present moment, you ask yourself, because first you have to be awake, right? To be able to ask yourself, you have to know your stuff. Who am I now? Who do I believe myself to be? Who do I want to be? What do I want to aspire to be? All that kind of stuff. Who am I now in relationship to what is appearing in my life right now? You wrestle with that, right?
Yeah.
So that's how you work with it in the present moment. But then at the same time, like I've found that there's trauma-based therapy that works, but I found something called logosynthesis. It sounds like magic. But what it does is it acknowledges the fact that as you go through your life, there are these moments when something happens that's too big for you to metabolize, too big for you to take in. So some part of you freezes, your consciousness freezes, and you carry it around with you. And then whenever you encounter something in the environment that reminds you of that, it resonates with that, you re-experience that trauma, right? So you need to, sometimes you can't like consciously work it. You need to actually do some kind of trauma-based therapy and dissolve that memory, right?
Yeah.
In a sense where the memory doesn't go away, you still have it, but the hold on your nervous system and the way it bent your consciousness starts to release. Yeah. So those are the 2 ways that I work with people, and it actually works.
Yeah.
And I was going to say it even gets crazier. Like this logosynthesis, it means healing with words. So you say a particular kind of sentences once you've identified the memory that you want to dissolve. But you can also use, like for me, I've got a metal plate in my left hand.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, all right, if
that's still in there, huh? That same one.
And it hurt, and I'll tell you, it used to hurt all the time.
Yeah.
Right. And so.
They don't have to like take that out and rechange.
They said if it does bother you down the road, that they're going to take it out. Yeah. But at this point, like all my nerves and everything, like it would be a mess. I'm just going to cut this off and put a hook on soon. It's like it's a mess because I see this ball in my hand right there. Do you see that little
at the end?
Right here?
Oh yeah.
See that? Oh. That's from softball. Remember that game, the last game I played?
I sure do.
When I folded my hand in half. So that bump's not supposed to be there, and I can't figure out what it is, and it is extremely painful. So this hand is literally useless.
Just a cluster of frayed nerves.
Everything, it's just
all of your tendons have bunched in one area.
I don't think I can ever play softball again. I'm not kidding.
Shit.
I don't know if because I can't catch them. So this, I literally am considering a hook. I'm not kidding. Because might as well, right? You know. I don't want to have like this weak thing that people expect I can use to do things, and then I have to be like, here's my good hand, you know, like. But no,
that was one of my pup ups. Like, he was very lucky in his stroke. He had a stroke, and the only thing that he lost control or use of was his right hand. Like, his right hand was just totally dead. And Belle, my dog, used to constantly nuzzle it and like lick it and like try to bring it back to life, basically. But that he used to have to shake with his left, and that was like more of a fucking heartbreak than anything he's ever experienced, because he's a serviceman. So everything is respect. Everything is, right hand shake, the whole thing, wanting it to be useful. And people see his fucking right hand, and they're like, and he just it killed him a little bit
every time.
Yeah, every time. It's interesting. You'll want it just for basic parenting stuff.
Yeah,
you'll want
think so?
Fingers. I think fingers, you'll find a use for them.
I imagine a day, like in the next 10, 20, 30 years, when they come up with a solution that's very attractive, and I will replace it at that point.
I mean, at some point, we're going to have full Elysium, and then you'll be able to have, like, the Terminator hand covered in skin. Yeah. And that'll be sick. And you'll accidentally, like, rip the fucking door of your car off.
Rip my daughter's arm off.
You go to pick her up, you're like, what?
Boom. She just goes through the sky. So what else is on your mind? I just missed the call, by the way, from I'm taking a new job. I didn't tell you about this.
Tell me.
You want to hear about it?
Yeah, I absolutely want to hear about it. No, I appreciate you giving so much space to my issues in the first half of the show.
It's my pleasure. Yeah. I was actually sleeping the whole time. I needed to get some quick cut. Now it's my turn. That
was just my tape that I played my
that was the subconscious. Because my mom's a psychologist, so I could just cruise right through that because I downloaded. Actually, it's true. Like this, I'm not surprised that I'm a healer in the sense that I'm so embarrassed saying that in front of you. Like in my community, it's like, Tim, healer, you're amazing.
It's It's Dr. Healer.
Mr. Dr. Healer to you. Yeah.
I didn't go to 14 years of healer school to not be called Mr. Doctor.
And it's true. And it's true. So, but my earliest memories are of my mom, like on these long conversations with people, just helping, being supportive, ignoring her own life, not fixing no, I'm just fucking, my mom's going to listen.
Britta,
it made a big impact on me. All right. So anyway, switching gears. So I'm taking a new job, right? And hopefully the people at my current job don't hear this because I'm also going to keep the current job on the side for as long as I possibly can. So here's the deal. So listeners, I don't think I've ever said this publicly, but around January of this year, Gina and I were, after Alma was born and everything, we're looking at finances and decided we're going to lose the house. If something doesn't change immediately, you know? And so, because from being sick, my healing practice is not where it needs to be. Everything's like still in this rebuilding phase. So I was like, shit. I was like, am I really going to have to get a job? And it killed me inside, because I worked so hard to build my life and it supported me. And now I got this fucking baby. Got to feed the baby. Now I got to get a job, and it was just,
how dare you make my barely there lifestyle not working.
I was just getting by without you.
Now I'm forced to strive for better.
Now I got to meet my sobriety.
Oh, are you? Are you sober?
As best I can be.
Nice. That's great.
It's definitely an attempt each day.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Still smoke pot occasionally.
Yeah.
Do that. But got to make some positive life changes. If for no other reason.
I'm sorry. Somebody came up to me recently and they're like, dude, 5 years no drinking. That's sick. He's like, I quit drinking like 3 years ago, man. It's amazing, right? It's amazing. I'm like, it's the best. I really feel a lot of clarity and positivity. He's like, yeah, I'll have like 4 or 5 beers at a wedding now and then, or like on a date or something. But, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, I don't drink.
That's a different kind of done than what I'm doing.
That's what not drinking to me means.
Yeah. So I had to get a job to begin with back in January. That's what I was saying. And I had to take, I didn't want to get rid of the setup that I had in terms of the healing work, teaching, workshops, radio shows, all that I love that life. I want my life to be that. And I want to keep exploring this and know it, have enough mastery where I can start writing some books and then talk about the books. You definitely
got to start writing a book.
I want that. Yeah. It was only actually last month, a month or two ago, where I was preparing to teach a class about something called the Shema, which is basically in Judaism, they talk about how all is one, right? You might think everything is separate, but all is one. Yeah. And I was teaching the different ways to enter into that.
All is one, besides a small strip of land.
Oh. Ooh. Well, yeah, that's what we wrestle with. All right, if all is one and all this is God, then what is this? Right?
It's people.
It
that's
comes
what
out.
It is.
It's
fucking people.
It's like it's your fucking consciousness. Yeah. That's what it is. We can talk about that another time. But
I'm uching the whole situation. I'm not uching anybody in particular. Because people are losing their livelihoods left and right. They're taking a side. It's like, you're fucked if you do, fucked if you don't. Each side has like their own pitfall. It's like, it's crazy, man. I'm trying to read as much as possible about it while also not commenting. Like I'm taking the never been heard of approach in 2023 of reading, researching, and never discussing it.
Just for you.
Just
so
for
that
me.
You can be sane.
Yeah, I want to see if I understand what's going on, and I don't. I understand some of the facts, but it's also like it's terrifying the frequency, because I'm like more or less not a news guy. Yeah, probably born out of deep inside the rabbit hole and my lack of trust of it. Yeah, and how editorialized it all is. But this time it's hard because the speed in which information comes, the editorialization of each and every article for either sides, for each person, it's almost impossible as a onlooker to really understand what's going on. And I think that's the whole point.
Yeah, and not only that, so that there's that separate issue, like what's the truth? How do you find the truth? How can you actually know what's going on in the world, right? When all that stuff is going on. And then there's this other problem with algorithms. Yeah. So there's this whole other beast that's going on now where you're getting fed certain stuff, and it's all about like profit and keeping you, it's not about the truth.
Algorithms are like digitally burning books.
It's not about the truth ever, and I see, William Kern and I love William. I see his heart. He really only cares about the truth. He doesn't care about anything else. He doesn't even care about his life. Seriously, he doesn't. So we started a show together. We recorded our first episode. We're editing it now. We're calling it News Healing. Nice. Right. And the attempt is take a non-dual approach to the news and actually try to give a healing about it. What is a healing? Some sort of awakening, some realization about it, some connection to the whole that we couldn't see, some relationship to it that actually helps you cope and get better from seeing the news, right? So we're exploring that, but Williams, he's so heartbroken, man. He's he's been a reporter his whole life, worked for New York Times, he's been around the world, met with really serious people about serious stuff, and it's just all falling apart before his eyes, And he was saying, so news healing is the only reason he's alive. And then he paused. He goes, this is the only reason why I'm here right now. And he paused and he goes, and also to be on the beaches of Taiwan when the Chinese invade, so I can be the first American detained.
Really?
Yeah, that's what he wants to do.
Weird.
Uh-huh.
Interesting.
I was like, that'll be the end of news healing.
You're like,
you never come back.
Short-lived project.
I was like,
it would boost your show.
It would, for sure.
If one of your hosts is detained in the China War, it would be sick.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Does he live over there?
He does occasionally. So I think I mentioned in a previous show that he's in the States. He doesn't want anyone to know that he's here. But so as soon as he can, he's going to go back, and that's where he wants to live.
Wow.
He just likes it there.
All right, cool. Good for him.
So what were we talking about? My mom.
New job.
New job. Right. Thanks for bringing me back. So I had to keep everything together. So I needed a job where I could choose my own schedule, and something that met my, talent skill set. And so I was like, all right, sales, there's always like shitty sales jobs around, or a sales job, that you can work from home even, that kind of stuff. And I was like, I sold solar like 10, 12 years ago. And I really enjoyed that. I got into solar right as the government incentives first came around. So everybody was super excited, and it attracted all of these very young, intelligent people that, are now they're all now owners of things, there's just a great combining and confluence of smart people. So I had such a warm feeling about solar. I was like, let me go sell solar again. Let me reach out to some old contacts and stuff. I get hooked up with a guy. He hires me like on the spot, like, which was, I should have had, red flag number one. Like I was in, like I had a quick conversation, and then Monday I was working.
He's like, all right, I'll need you in San Francisco in a week. You're like, all right, again.
But he said, look, you'll be 1099, so you make your own hours. I'm not going to, I'll be there to support you or whatever, but you do your own thing. But it turned out, so the solar industry changed from, like, oh, let's invite the cool solar guy over and have him teach us about solar. Maybe we'll do it, huh?
Yeah.
Maybe this will be like what we do. We'll be in the front of it. And and now it's, door knocking. It's
right.
teams of people that go out into neighborhoods, knock on doors, and they're strong arming you. They're smoke and mirrors. And I have empathy for it, right? Because you're up against people's biology, right? If you're cold calling someone on the phone or you're knocking on the door, they feel threatened, right? This guy's coming to take advantage of me, to get something from me, right? So you have to somehow disarm them, empathize with them, and explain yourself and why you're there, and keep them interested all in like one fell swoop. And like, I used to be really good at that. What attracted me to sales to begin with was, like, believe it or not, like I went on an interview and it was one of those bait and switches where you think you're going on a real business sales call, and then you park in some parking lot in Haverstraw, Rockland County, and they take off their suit and they put on a Verizon t-shirt, and then they say, all right, now we're gonna go on the sales calls.
I've been on that same sales call.
You know what I'm saying?
In Garden City.
And I was like,
and it was for OSHA signs.
Yeah.
We'd walk into things and be like, we don't see your OSHA sign. And they're like, what the fuck? And we're like, it's government compliant. They're like, you work for the government? We're like, that's not important.
Yeah. You try to, you hope they don't ask that question, right? No, I work for AT&T. Absolutely. Absolutely. No, you don't. You work for this third party that is just sending out this backbreaking labor for just pumping people's ideas of what's possible and taking advantage. But I will say, the reason why I took that job.
Yeah.
I took that job because I watched a guy. His name was Jay DiDonato. I'll never forget, because we ended up like becoming good friends. He knocked on a guy's door, and the guy was like, "Get the fuck out of here." And Jay was like, perfect. So, and he went into the pit. He did the whole thing. And by the time he was done, like within a matter of like 30 seconds to a minute, the guy had completely changed his stance. He invited us in. He made a sale, and he made like $100. And then he did it 3 more times. And I was like, this guy just made like $400. But more than anything, I was like, all right, it's not the money. I was like, there's power in this. I was like, what else could I use this for? So I was like, sign me up. Teach me how you do all of this. So that was like the first, a lot of people get into sales doing that first.
Did any of my question when it comes to sales, because some of like, when I think of it, some of my like manipulation morality or pushiness morality or my need to be liked kind of flares up, and I push against what I'm being taught. You know what I mean?
Tell me, explain.
Like, there are techniques to being a salesman.
Yes.
And a lot of that is just like pushing through, right? And kind of ignoring human deflections and human like stop signs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And you're kind of going around it. So that is what sales is, and it's like that's how to do it correctly, and that's how to successfully. But like when I hear that first, like, I don't know, I'm like, you're right, we don't need this.
Yeah.
like I'm like fucking Tommy Boy. Okie dokie. You know, that kind of shit.
Well, you got to build your tolerance, right? Yeah. Unless you're a sociopath, which is what all the $1 million door knockers are. They're all sociopaths. Unless you're that, then you have to sort of build a certain kind of thick skin and tolerance for that kind of stuff, right? And then you build the skill set. Well, over time, because you have to really get through 5, 6, 7 objections. The client's going to say no 5, 6, 7 times, and perfect. And then you empathize with them, and then you follow up with a question, and then you dig in, right? What I love about sales now, right, the level that I'm at now, is there's a larger sales cycle, and you don't have to. Well, this is the job that I'm taking. You don't have to like there's no door to door. There's no cold calling. Right. There's people coming to me, so I'm like a consultant, and yes, I have to compel you to buy. Yes, it's a transfer of enthusiasm. Yes, I get paid when you buy, right? But there's not as much manipulation. Sure. Like I don't need to strong arm people. Yeah. But back in the day doing that stuff, it was crazy. So anyway, I did sales all my life up until solar. Now I'm getting back into solar, and it's this crazy door-to-door stuff. And at one point I realized, like, I was like, I just can't do this. I was like, is it resistance? Like, what is it? And I talked to like my mentors about it, and they're like, you have a moral conflict, actually. And I was having a major issue with it, and I couldn't show up anymore. And, you know, Gina's like, can't you just fucking do this for the family? You know, can't you just fuck, you know what? I'm like, the problem is, like, I can't seem to will myself through this.
Right.
All the healing work I did actually brought me to a place where if I'm going to manipulate somebody, I have to split myself.
Yeah. And
so I'm going to actually, when I imagine in my mind, I end up grieving. And my teacher was like, you're grieving because you're abandoning some part of yourself in order to do this. He's like, it's really not good. Like, he's like, it's temporary. You know, you're building a healing business. That's what you're going to do. But so just suck it up for now, whatever.
Yeah.
Another job opportunity came around, and I jumped at it, right? It's called Golf Pro Launch. So basically the idea is I'm talking to only golf pros.
Okay.
They know we're the only ones that do this kind of thing. And they come to me saying, how can you help my golf pro business? And the sale is basically, give me $12,000.
Sure.
I'll give you $30,000 in 3 months back in return. And I'll give you $100,000 in the first year.
Okay.
And that's our guarantee, or else we give you your money back. Pretty good deal. You know what I mean?
not bad.
So I'll compel people to buy. I start on Monday. We'll see. I'll get trained. We see how it is.
What do you mean golf pro business? Like, they're the ones that are stationed at, like, say, Blue Hill?
Yeah.
Okay, so for their course then.
Yeah, so
to drum up business for their course.
Yeah. So it's like we create like a customer relationship management software, and so we manage it for them, and at the same time we fill there. But they only hired me. You're the closer. They're like, you're the closer. So we set it up for you. We fill your calendar.
That
you
shit
just show
also
up and you
works
close it.
too with a lot of outdated business plans. Is because a lot of these golf courses obviously were like built a long time ago, so their entire infrastructure is based on like a handshake.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So all of this, like, they have no idea how to target an audience online or social media or gather emails or like really put all of this stuff into one place, like create a business, really, like a modern business. So the idea of you guys actually having that one-stop plug-in shop for these, it's pretty good.
And you know, before I took the job, right, I was like, all right, can you give me an idea of I guess the connection between all this, by the way, is the guy who I'm working with now is a guy I lived in a house with in San Francisco who we door-to-door together. And we had rival teams. I had team Alpha Sales. He had team Fearless. And so his team always wore purple suits and my team always wore blue suits. And then we'd go take our suits off and go door knocking.
I love that.
You fucking pretend before and after the door knocking, you put your suit on and you pretend that you're like an official business person. Then you go out into the field. It's such a crazy business.
So
you know,
fucking funny.
It's so crazy. But dude, it taught me a lot, and I'm still using what I learned from there.
Yeah.
But now it's such a more anyway. I can only.
I mean, that shit works on a life level too.
Yeah.
Of just learning, not necessarily the manipulation, but that's funny that your teacher said that, and that's what you had happen, because that's exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah.
With like a moral block and inability to deceive.
Yes.
And like, even though solar, it helps people. They save money, all that shit. But you know that it's almost like how they tried to get OJ and they tried to frame the evidence even though it was already good enough. It's like you're manipulating an already good thing, and so you already feel bad about the lies that lead you to the thing. Yeah.
It's a terrible feeling from the start, like from the start. So I'm trying to remember what else did I actually want to say about this. That might be it. You know, and maybe it's just saying wish me luck.
Well, I do wish you luck. Do you feel inspired? Like, does this put new juice into your healing practice? Does this like put new juice into what you want your house to be in terms of like this office, your command center of both healing and this gig? So like, how has it affected you like that?
So that's the deal, right? So much of this is the driving force is Alma, right? And wanting to get a little nest egg together for my family. I've never felt that kind of safety before, right? Yeah. And so while I rebuild my healing practice, which is going, by the way, it's peaking. Oh, because that whatever I said clicked about a month or two ago. You know, it really has clicked. So now the quality of my healings and my clients, I'm getting so many referrals. I'm like, awesome. Oh God, I finally fucking know what I'm doing. I can help people. So I can charge. I can feel good about what I charge charge. Everything's clicked.
Yeah.
So that's going to grow. I need something in between now and then to sort of just get out of debt, pay everything off, pay my car off, all that kind of shit. So I'm going to pound the pavement as much as I can, learn this, and I'm excited about it because I don't feel guilty about it.
Yeah.
Just got to learn it and then just go sell. They're setting the appointments for me, so all I have to show up and just close a deal and then move on, right? It's like,
what do you get to wear?
I don't know. I think whatever I want.
Yeah, okay.
I think, because right now I'm like they're firing everybody else and hiring me.
Yeah.
And giving me everything.
Oh, sick.
So I think I get
a nice tailored suit.
I think I get to create and do whatever I want, to be honest, which is pretty cool. Because my manager is the guy that I used to work with. So like we're really cool. We just
By the way, best haircut you've ever gotten.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of compliments.
It's a good haircut. The fade is fucking like perfect.
I still go to Fat and Skinnies.
Me too.
Yeah.
Brian.
No.
Oh, you go to the OGs that move.
Yeah.
That's so funny. My dad lost them hundreds of thousands of dollars in the stock market.
Oh, no. Because they're good guys.
That's probably why they're still working.
Oh,
they're like
no.
112.
No.
Paying off what my father bled from them.
Oh, my God. Dude. I don't get involved in the stock market and all that stuff. It's a world that I'm not going to do that.
It also, it feels like, I mean, people now say this, it's a thing, but it's like typically when the stock market is down or up, it affects the economy at large, but I'm always just like, this totally doesn't involve me.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I'm not even playing I felt that way during NFTs and like Bitcoin and shit like that too. I had this I'm like a lot of people, I felt that like mad rush inside, like everybody figured this thing out before me and everybody's going to have money and I'm going to be the last idiot that's broke.
Fear of loss.
Yeah, just all that shit. But then, it plays out and you see what happens to it and you're like, oh, it was a fucking crapshoot just like everything else.
Yeah.
And people that thought they knew what they were talking about had no fucking clue. And so that, like, the idea of it being a gamble, I'm like, I'll just sit down and play poker.
Yeah.
Like if somebody,
well, that's your gambling, right?
It's like if somebody just gives me $50,000 and over a course of 6 months, I'll go play in like different cash games and events. I'll turn that into $1 million.
Yeah, there it is.
That's my pitch.
And you're pretty good at it too. So that's like, so like you could actually gamble, but also like living the life that you're living. And me too. It's a gamble.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a different, it's not some safety office job.
No.
It's a total gamble. That to me is exciting enough. I don't need to gamble. I never do. It's I gamble with my life. Like,
I want to not necessarily gamble. I want to be educated about investments, but also that is going to come once I have any.
You got to invest, right?
Yeah.
Once you need money to invest.
It's like it's so funny. I forget who I was talking to about this, but it's like Gramercy Theater was like a huge paying gig. Like in terms of one night in New York City, it was like damn near $10K for just a fucking hour-long show, right? Which is great. And then I get it, and you're like, I had no idea how bad I needed that because it's all gone. Like every dollar of it, school, daycare, doctor, whatever. Like it's just rent. It's just instantly gone, and you're like, man, that's crazy. Like how this shit just happens. Where it's an open revolving door. I totally get it. I totally get why my parents were so frustrated.
And I'm careful telling myself this story, but it seems to be that as soon as I get ahead for a brief moment, something happens.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, if I didn't get ahead for that brief moment, I wouldn't have been able to deal with this something that happened. And I'm like, part of me has so much anxiety. Like, how am I going to pay this? How am I going to do that? And somehow it keeps working out. Yeah. Right. And I'm careful not to, because I know for some people it doesn't work out. Right. And the worst happens.
Well, do you know what's weird about talking about this is like, so my first feeling of even being open about like, financial insecurity, it doesn't even mean we're poor. It just means like having to worry about money, which I think almost everybody does. But in this like really like stylized time of content, or maybe this is only the world I live in, but it feels like if you talk about not having money, you're an actual fucking loser. Like if you talk about how you don't feel like you're the man and the best and whatever, you're kind of a fucking loser, and nobody wants to hear that shit. It's super weird. It's like everybody is either a millionaire or pretending, and they're doing a good job pretending, because it's like it's this whole world of like you're either a professional victim or you are like, Napoleon. It's weird.
Yeah, I don't. I hear you. I wonder.
It's totally just my world.
You think so?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's not. I'm interested to see, like, because it's kind of your world as well, since you're involved in social media and you're a public front-facing person. So I'm just curious if it feels that way to people that don't podcast or to people that just don't live a public life. Like, if if I'm trying to figure out the words, but like if like talking about finance or money or whatever is like, it's always been an insecure, weird thing for people. But is it now like, oh, you are like, you're a fucking, you have money problems, you're get away from me kind of shit.
What's that about?
I don't know. I think it's like in comedy, it's very like we're going through a boom, but a lot of the people that are doing great, like, or not a lot of the
it's
people.
tribal.
It's tribal.
It's
for
tribal.
Sure. Yeah.
Like don't
don't
poison me with your fucking deficit.
Right. So the people that are doing, the people my age or so or older doing really great kind of built it for themselves, right?
Yeah.
So they learned how to use social media and more or less weaponize it for their own career. Mm-hmm. A lot of young comics right now are like kids with money, and their parents like own corporations and shit like that. So they have never-ending resources. And somebody like me who owns a family and is touring and working hard and been doing this for a long time, it's hard to compete with unlimited resources.
So how does unlimited resources make a comedian?
It doesn't, but that's the current place we're in. Is that like all these people that in no other time on earth would have been a comedian, because comedy used to be like when I started comedy, the best way to say is like comedians would talk about their life and the audience would be like, thank God that's not my life, man. That's hilarious. Or I related to that part, but holy shit, that other part was fucking nuts. And now comedy has merged with influencers. So now people look at it, and everybody does it because it's social media. So now people look at it as just as viable of a job as office manager. It's like, oh, I can be a comedian. My parents say I could set up a studio and do a podcast, and they're not wrong.
Yeah,
it is the market.
It's an interesting thing that happens because following your career and being interested in comedy in general, you can sort of see how comedy is, in my opinion, it's like top of society, peak. Like, I love you guys.
We sell bigger than music right now.
Yeah,
I mean
that's what
they.
I mean. We've been watching. I've been watching comedy kind of rise to the top of being like the only flagship of truth that we can actually trust at this point, which is really fascinating.
Well, and there is going to be a Bieber pissing in a bucket in the Museum of Anne Frank moment for comedy, like where we as a society build things to the absolute epicenter and then take it down and try to tear it down, because we are, in my opinion, we're in the peak, like P. Diddy Mace era of comedy.
Yeah.
Where now it's hitting mainstream. It used to be a small thing.
It's like yoga. Yeah. It's like what the West did to yoga,
exactly.
Right? So these people are getting into it, but it's like, those that are the real people.
Yeah. There will always be a place for it.
Yeah.
But there will always be a place for like, that's live comedy and stuff like that. And granted, that is taking a hit from social media because some of which I'm guilty of, crowd work, heckling videos, all that stuff has actually like incentivized bad behavior. So not only have people been isolated during the pandemic, their drinking has gone up, skyrocketed, but they also now see this thing where you're like, oh, I could be part of the show. They love when I'm part of the show. They post when I'm part of the show. When I'm part of the show, they sell tickets. Like it's that reinforced. So they feel, and they are, but they feel like an integral part of the show, but their part doesn't match what their part should be. The part is either laugh or not. Their part isn't, you also have to be interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So all these different things are like swimming around, creating a pretty chaotic environment. But again, it's like, this is a moment in time. I'm pretty happy to be alive during this time, and it's interesting to see.
Luckily, I was saying, I don't think this takes away from what you're saying. I think it's, parallel to it. Is like you're at a place in your career, too, where you're really starting to carve out your own audience. And carry that with you. So it's like everyone else is going to have to deal with that fucking chaos.
Exactly.
And that craziness. You're kind of getting out ahead of it right now, which is pretty cool.
I mean, look at somebody like, but even like, so this is comedy in a nutshell, right? Do you know this kid, Matt Rife? Do you know who he is?
I think
you've heard of him.
Yes.
Really good-looking kid.
Okay.
Porcelain veneers, TRT, jaw, the whole thing. Like, good-looking kid. Was on Wild 'N Out. Like, has done a ton of shit. He popped the fuck off on TikTok, like beyond measure. Truly has never happened before, from like base to height. Like, holy shit, this kid's a fucking rocket ship. Sold out a world tour over 18 months in, I think, a day. A world tour. Sold it the fuck out.
Wow.
And it's like, so what's interesting though is that he's garnered these fans from TikTok, right? So all of these people are keyed into what he does, which is crowd work mostly, but whatever. They like him for him. Now he just got on Netflix, so all these people outside of his fan base are experiencing him for the first time, and they have a fucking opinion about it. And that's what happens to yoga. That's what happened to rap. Is rap was once an isolated thing within a community, within a culture, and it had meaning and all this stuff. And then people who didn't know about it started getting wind of it. They loved it. They had opinions on it, and then their opinions now help shape that art form. So it's people that don't know or really even like comedy, but because they've laughed once, think they know it, and then they watch it, and they now are a part of the audience, and now they're shaping what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And it's weird. It's weird when you take it on a grand, like a mass general scale like that, because my fans are fucking awesome. My fans are like down for what I do, and the people outside of that are almost irrelevant. But once your material transcends your fans, which you hope it does, and gets outside to other people that will then come see your show, that's also when it can get muddy. It's weird.
Yeah. And yet it's another fractal, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I wonder if you could track, I wonder if there's a similar life cycle to that, to like a business product. You know how you've got like the early adopters, everyone in between, and then the late to the party people, and you can sort of predict a life cycle of a product. I bet you there's a life cycle in terms of, you know, the rising and falling of these aspects of our culture and society.
Totally. Yeah.
I just don't know.
There was a boom in the 80s for comedy.
Yeah.
That seemed much more fad-ish. Like the only reason why this, I don't know if it's a trend or a fad or whatever. It seems kind of what it will be, but I mean, who knows? You know, everything changes. But it just, I don't know a world where social media won't exist. Like I can't see it, and I can't see a world where like the internet isn't a huge part of our everyday lives. So content and all of these things are just going to be constantly evolving and ever present in our lives. So whether comedy looks like it looks now, eventually it doesn't matter, but it's always going to be a thing. Yeah, you know.
It just reminded me why it's so important. Like in spiritual traditions and like the healing work that I do, there are different lineages, you know, from, you know, essentially the way it works is at some point somebody puts the work in, or it's karmic for whatever reason, they wake up to a larger reality. And then they're also built in a particular way where they can communicate, share it, and teach it. You know, they do something with it, right? Yeah. And then they create a lineage. And the way that they create a lineage is because once somebody embodies a particular kind of consciousness, you know, the healing work I do, we used to call it integrated Kabbalistic healing, because it used to be about, okay, you want to wake up, but then you also have to get it into the body, into your life, right? So when a master wakes up, integrates it into his life, and then he's working with one of his students, that student, just by being in their physical presence, gets a transmission of that consciousness. Science could back it up in different ways, but we, in spiritual circles, we know that this is true. And there actually are times when you're prepared and you could receive particular transmissions, and you don't want to receive them too early, because the reason why you're not awake to these larger realities is because there's aspects of your consciousness that are protecting you. Because if you were to wake up to because the idea is at some point you really were kind of awake to that reality, and you had to shut down and contract and protect yourself. So when you do wake up, you have to meet all of the stuff that was behind that protector, right? So you have to meet all your stuff. So it needs to be done carefully, otherwise you do go crazy, right? Yeah. So in spiritual traditions, you keep it alive. You keep the line alive by having particular people that keep it real, that rebreathe the teachings through themselves. So it is different, but at the same time original, right? And I always see you as one of those people that's doing that with comedy, right? You've always been connected to the real part of it, like the heart of what comedy is. The real. And you weren't willing to sacrifice anything for it.
I wonder if that's evident, because I don't like, I talk about this part of comedy, like the spiritual element of it a lot, and what it, or like even just this, but I don't get like, I haven't gotten super in depth about my connection to it for fear of being queefy and just completely anti-comedy, which it is. But like, I hope it does come across how much I fucking love stand-up. That, like, stand-up, not just comedy. I love stand-up, and I love the don't shake the fucking dog. Get out of here. I just love stand-up. I think it's like, you know, one of the purest spaces that you could have. It's a person with a microphone saying exactly what the fuck they want, and the reaction will be the reaction, whether it's bad or good. It doesn't matter. It's just it's a pure transaction. And I just love it. And I love what Gary Shanley, how he talked about it, and how it's just merely, the jokes are irrelevant, and it's merely an expression of your authenticity and who you are. And the jokes, like the material, everything that you have accumulated, doesn't mean dog shit. It means how the only thing that matters is did you express your true self?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's what means something to me with comedy, where it's like, of course I want to sell tickets, I want to make money, I want all of the capitalistic pleasures of doing well, but that shit about comedy, about connecting and being with other people, and again, that kind of like shared experience, that energy exchange, that's like, I've been on the hunt for that since I was born.
Man, you're describing almost to a T what we're after with all the non-dual work that we're going to. That level of honesty and truth and vulnerability and intimacy, right? All of that, right? You're showing up, correct me if I'm wrong, right? But you're showing up and that's your job. So you have to be honest and truthful, be connected to the deepest part of yourself that wants to be expressed, and then you use skillful means to express it comedically, right? Yeah. So but you're doing that deep work, and that, and it doesn't, like, it almost doesn't count if you're not doing that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I know that because the healing work that I'm after, the whole point of it is to do enough healing work so I'm awake to all of my stuff, so I can see through it, so I can completely be honest and truthful and myself. And that way, when I sit in front of a group of people, say 20, 30, 40 people in a room, and they're all going through this program with me, I can be I can be seated in that place, and in doing so, there's something that happens between myself and the classmates, and something is created that's larger than the sum of its parts. That's mysterious. That is, it takes twists and turns, and you're surprised by it. You don't know what's going to happen. You laugh, you cry. It's the whole thing. It's spontaneous. It's alive. It's real. It's the real.
Yeah,
the real. That's what everybody's after in spiritual traditions, is that real moment. Or there's a koan that says, "Show me your original face before your parents were born." Think about it. Your original face. It's like, what the fuck? How do you do it? You know, it's the real. It's just you're always meeting the real. And so anyway, I think it's cool to hear, because it's like we're all finding our way to this place. That's what, like, life is doing. Yeah. The self-actualizing cosmos, and good artists have the pleasure and pain with the promises and the pitfalls, all of it, of the path, but they get an opportunity to explore that. Yeah. You know, and that's the risk.
Yeah.
You know,
that's the risk, but also it's like, again, going back to even my mom shit, and like my dad, him being an actor, going with a more practical thing, vocally blaming his family. My mom, you know, basically just kind of stunting herself within her old Irish bullshit. Me being a comedian and me doing this for my entire life while also taking care of a family is a direct challenge to my parents. Is like a direct, like, okay, then I'm going to fucking attack this world. If you guys didn't do it, if you didn't attack what you want and you can't get out of your own way, I'm not going to stop seeking. I'm not going to stop trying. That's my favorite part of comedy, is that it's like a constant fucking effort. It's also the most exhausting part of it. It's a constant effort. It's constant refining. It's constant self-checking. It's constant, like, thought lifeguarding, to where, like, and not like, don't say that thing because it might be offensive. It's do you believe that? Is that true to your heart? Are you just saying that because you think it'll get a reaction? Yeah. Like that kind of thing. So that, to me, is what comedy has helped me live a life, like an actual life. It's the vehicle that has allowed me to drive away from my parents. That's what comedy is. It's the car that got me to fucking get the fuck out of town. Yeah. Yeah. And I was just thinking, you know, you went through a phase of doing a lot of crowd work. Yeah, yeah. Right. I still do. I mean, it's part of the show. Like, and that's the only reason I put up those clips, is because it does not burn my material. It would be one thing if I was a crowd work comic that hasn't put out 3 hours so far, with a fourth being taped early next year. Info. I got to tell you about it. It's okay. Fucking sick. Like, that would be a thing. If I only did crowd work and I had like a half-hour special and that was it, then I would feel lazy and I'd feel whatever. But I'm a prolific writer that continues to fucking push myself to be the best I can be. I'm not saying prolific as in comparison to anybody else. I'm constantly measuring myself against my last hour, and is it close to myself? Is it what I feel right now? Is this a benchmark in my life? It's like my special, White Privilege Homeless, I have a lot of like negative feelings about it, not for the material, but more for the circumstance that surrounded it. I had a really shitty manager at the time, a lot of conflict. I burned a lot of money on it. He lit on fire like $15,000, which was super cool. And so I have a lot of like negative feelings about it, but then I can go back and I can listen to the bits individually or whatever and really like appreciate that that's where I was. We lived at my fucking in-laws. This hour had to happen. It had to. If it didn't, I would have missed a pretty substantial fucked up part of my life that I just didn't comment on. So whether or not it's my biggest hour doesn't matter. I mean, I would have liked it to have been more successful. It's fine, but it's still a necessary expression of a moment in my life to where if I want a full body of work, then that's got to be a part of it.
Yeah. Yes, the whole warts and all thing, right?
Yeah.
And all along the way, like what I was saying with the crowd work, it's like you were working this, you're getting to that place inside yourself that's real the whole time.
Yeah,
it's all
that
different.
muscle.
It's all different ways, and that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
Authenticity.
Yeah.
I think that's the theme of this show.
I think so. Anything else you want to talk about?
I think that's it.
Let me see. Let me see what I wrote down here. Oh, by the way, I don't think you knew this, but this show is brought to you by the Foundation for Non-Duality. Awesome. I don't know if you knew that you were connected to it at this point.
But that's exciting.
Yeah. Secretly, that's why I'm talking about it.
Can I get a T-shirt?
We don't have any, but when we do,
Great.
Sure, yeah. They just gave me a grant to basically get all new equipment, get recording equipment, video equipment,
awesome.
all kinds of stuff.
That's awesome.
So we'll get a big, new setup for the Third Thing Network and all that. And I think that's all I have to do is say it's brought to you by the Foundation for Non-Duality. Because their mission, they want me to share non-duality to the world. It's like, good, I want to do that too. You know, that's what I want my life to be.
Well, and I like this. I like this podcast because first it is funny. Like we do have funny parts of it, but this is like a side of myself, I guess, that I don't necessarily get to exercise a lot, especially since Rabbit Hole and Mike and Tim technically ended. And it's very clear that I'm in need of these conversations right now as I'm just, swimming in quicksand. So sorry if you guys thought that this was just an hour of me bitching. I apologize, but somebody had to hear it.
Yeah, you never know. How the hell do you know?
I'm judging the judge.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I was going to say. How the hell do you know if you're doing a good job or not? Right?
I'm picturing the comments already.
Wait till this fucking show's over. We put all our healing work and all our methods together to try to just tolerate, just doing it. But that's a part of why we do it too.
That should be your self-help book title is Tolerate Life.
I haven't heard anybody else say that.
That's a great.
At one point, because that's actually what I teach. Because Jason's a fucking genius, and he's so smart, and he's got his own way of doing things. Tiger Shulman.
Yeah.
And he's like, so I can't be him, but I can communicate it in my way, the way I understand it, right? So when people ask me, like, what do you do? How do you help people? And it's like, when I talk about healing and awakening work, like, forget about all the airy-fairy stuff and all your ideas of it, whatever. When I'm talking about this, what I'm talking about is tolerating your life. What is now showing up in your life? What's appearing in your life? Whatever it is, can you tolerate it enough that you don't fall asleep and revert to some memory-driven, habitual, historical way of relating to it that's only going to create more problems and suffering for the world? That's it, right? So you have to tolerate it first. Once you can tolerate it without your hair blowing back and fucking, going off to the races for whatever, deny sex, drugs, rock and roll. Everybody has their strategies. Then you wake up. You have the opportunity to change your relationship to it. Yeah. That's the moment that the rest of your life changes, and you actually become a healthier, saner person. And you actually are making an impact in the world rather than spinning the wheels and just poisoning and creating all this secondary suffering to the already difficult stuff that we're doing, And so that's what it is. Healing and awakening is tolerating and then changing your relationship to it. Tolerating life.
Tolerate life.
We had an email.
Oh yeah, we did.
Okay, here's the email. Hi, Tim. Not to Mike. Oh. Sorry. Not sure when you're recording with Mike next, but I'd love if you talked a little about 27. I'm turning 27 soon, and it would be cool to hear what both of you were going through at that time, since I know it's considered a turning point in numerology and around the same time as the Saturn return. P.S. So glad to hear your voices again. I've been listening for almost 10 years now, which is kind of wild.
Very cool.
Yeah.
27. What year was that? Was that 2012?
Yeah, it had to be around there.
Yeah,
right at the end of the world.
2012. Right at the end of the world. Had we done? Were we just starting Rabbit Hole?
Yeah, we were, because I had just joined the school when I was 27. Okay. I joined the school. So I was already in the school, and Rabbit Hole started because episode 3 is when I realized that conspiracy was all bullshit and it was about consciousness. And I was like, and the Liberty, like that was the end of the Liberty Men. The third episode in, I was like, oh, wow, okay.
So
and then it became Mike, Dave, and Tim.
Yeah, so I guess that's what we were doing. We were embarking on a brand new journey. I mean, Tim and I were knee deep in alcoholism, probably neck deep, but we were having a good time.
Yeah, breathing underwater.
Oh, so fun. And I think I was not married. We were dating. Nicole and I were dating with no plans to get married. No plans ever. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of where I was like emotionally or mentally, or like I think I'm a more mature version of myself now. I can certainly speak to myself, speak about myself better now. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of the feelings were the same. I just didn't locate them yet. Yeah. That was like the beginning of me going to therapy, of me doing the podcast and talking open and honestly about this stuff. And, I mean, obviously the next step, the first next step of my comedy career, where it was like open mics, bar shows. Then that was, I'm getting booked in clubs, I'm working, I'm doing podcasts. Then it started a little bit of the road. And then once Rabbit Hole ended, then I'm like, off to the races.
Right. Okay, interesting. Do you know what? So it's 27 to 33, right? Mm-hmm. So when you came back, so the whole idea about this, by the way, like numerologically or astrologically, the idea is that when you turn 27, you are reuniting with spirit for the first time since you came on Earth. So there's sort of a reckoning, And if you look at there's all these famous people that died at age 27. Yeah. Esoterically, there's so much that you could say that people say about 27. Who knows if it's true or not? Yeah. Like Pythagoras apparently believed that there's, anyway, there's like a 27th letter to the alphabet that we're going to wake up to, because each number represents a state of consciousness. And when we wake up to the greater brotherhood of man, we'll have the 27th letter. So there's all this stuff about it. But in short, it's like a major turning point in your life. It should be. And then you come back at age 33.
Well, it's funny you say come back at the age of 33, because that's when I got Nicole pregnant.
There you go. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Starting with Rabbit Hole and then, probably ending at 33 was likely the biggest emotional and consciousness shift of my life. Like the most drastic, I should say. Not the most, because obviously important shit's learned or figured out every single day, but like drastically from... I've never been surface level, but from like the young guy seeking fun for the most part, fun and whatever, and like not having that much, having drive when it comes to comedy, but not having discipline or focus, and then it turning like that's when I aged into like being a man, kind of. You know what I mean? Like not linearly, but by the time I was 33 and I got Nicole pregnant, that's when I officially, like the moment I got Nicole pregnant, I became a man. The moment. Because when she told me, I felt the change. Yeah. It was crazy. I felt my decision my decision, like as if I'm some big guy, but it's like, there is that thing in a guy's head of like, do I want this? Am I a family guy? And I don't know what this is. Like, what is my role in this? She's growing it. Do I go out and hunt? All that shit. Yeah. But I remember being like, I'm 100% fully bought in. I am into the scheme. I'm into the team. I'm into everything that we're doing. I will take whatever position, whatever role in that necessary. And just like from that decision on, everything became better. Like just in terms of like how I... Yeah. Of course, this is following 70 minutes of me saying my life is terrible. But you know what I mean? In terms of just like, again, like I said, 10 years ago, I would have died to be in this position. So it's all subjective. But it's everything has substantially gotten better since 27.
So it sounds like even age 33, there was like a shift in your center of gravity. Yeah. It was like, so things were just... Yeah.
No, I needed my son. My son was like, was sent from somebody. Nicole even said, she was like, I'm glad I delivered you your soulmate. Because he is. He's like, him and I have like an otherworldly connection that can it's like, I get emotional thinking about it because I love him so much, but it's just like, yeah, man, he's changed my life.
That's great. Yeah. I feel like, I didn't have that moment when Gina told me she was pregnant. It was more like, oh, fuck. I'm not healthy yet. I have nothing together. Like my life's a fucking mess. And I thought I'd have more time to be a mess. Yeah. And it was like, now you got to start doing big boy things, you know. Thank God for Gina, because she does a lot. She does a lot, and I get very anxious and overwhelmed, and I find it difficult to do things. But she often lays a runway for me. Like she'd be like, "Hey Tim, you should do another workshop." And the first thing I think of is like, I gotta fucking get people like excited about it. What if nobody shows up? Like I'm not even ready to teach it, you know. And then like by the time it happens, it always like goes well. I'm always so happy I did it, and then I have to remind myself like, if Gina didn't suggest that to me, you never would have done it. You know. So she did that a lot, like even leading up to the Alma being born. But it was when I heard her, when Alma was actually physically born for the first time, and I heard her scream and cry. That's when I felt the shift. Everything got real, and my life was never the same. That was it. And then I remember there was a period of time when I felt the love, but it was meeting so many other conflicts, like. You know, I just lost my life, and now there's a new life, right? There's a lot going on. Once I worked through that, there was like this moment where I was like, I am so madly in love with this girl, you know, and this is the best. Like, how could it be that the best thing that's ever happened to me, the best thing I ever did, which you hear other people talk about, was just like, I didn't really do anything.
You just didn't pull out.
Yeah, it's what I didn't do. Yeah. A profound not doing.
A profound staying still.
Yes.
I think that's a great way to end.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. So this has been fun. Cool.
This has been awesome. Cathartic. Don't judge the judge. Aaron Judge.